Not to pat myself on the back, but this season I've been doing a great job coming up with teases. But occasionally the teases write themselves, and that is exactly what happened this week, because for only the 8th time in franchise history, the Phillies are going to the World Series. And I cannot be more excited for it. We'll get more into that on this episode, as well as the Flyers' success and the Union winning their postseason game here on this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back. As always, I'm your host, Aidan Company, and I'm joined by a full panel again for about the 3rd episode in a row. I have Mike Holden sitting right next to me. How are you doing, Mike?
Oh, I'm doing great.
We have Siobhan Nolan again. Siobhan, how are you?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Good to hear. And we have Shane Nolan. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
So the first team we're going to get into again for about the 3rd or 4th week in a row is the Philadelphia Phillies. As I said in the opener, they're back in the World Series. First time in 13 years. They won Game 5 against the I'm sorry, I'm forgetting who they beat. But they've won Game 5, 4-3. The Padres, that is correct. Thank you. Yes, they beat the Padres in Game 5, 4-3. It's their first World Series in 2009. They were playing the Astros. The Astros were the team stuck in my mind. But yes, they did beat the Padres in a dramatic Game 5. Talk about that feeling of that game.
I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I was there to witness it live, and it was definitely the best sporting event that I've ever seen live, or just in general. I mean, when Bryce Harper hit the home run, it's like, I mean, he was meant for the city, and this is what, when he signed here, this is what we expected from him, and that was just amazing. Then the 9th inning, obviously wouldn't be the Phillies if there's not some drama in the end. So, I mean, that feeling's awesome, but it'll be even better if they can win against the Astros in the World Series.
Just the atmosphere, both during the game and after the fact, that greasing the poles wasn't enough. That's the kind of atmosphere that you love to see, and that's what makes the city so special. So the reaction going to the World Series when we started out this postseason, not thinking they were going to get past the first round, it's just such a special feeling, and it's bringing such a great vibe to the city, and I love it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you had Rhys Hoskins with that 2-run shot to give the Phillies a 2-0 lead. Zach Wheeler goes 7 2/3 innings. And then you had a little drama with, say, Anthony Dominguez losing grip of the ball because of the rain. And you're thinking, here we go. When the Padres took the lead, like, this game's going back to San Diego. But then Bryce Harper in the bottom of the 8th inning.
Yes, so the city, as Siobhan brought up, did go absolutely bonkers after they won this game. It is a shock to pretty much everyone that Citizens Bank Park is still standing at this point. But talk a lot about what the city, how it's been, the vibe of it since they won that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've been waiting for 11 years. I mean, since they lost to the Cardinals in 2011. So, I mean, it's just something that not a lot of people have, at least. I mean, we were lucky enough to be old enough to see the Phillies World Series, but a lot of these kids, they don't know what playoff baseball is like. So, it's so good to have playoff baseball back, and just. I know that not a lot of people expect them to be here, but as Phillies fans, this is what we expected when you're spending all these millions of dollars on this roster the past few years, and it's finally paying off. So this has been a special run, but it's not done yet. They got 4 more to win, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I hate to be the cliche person here, but, Philly loves a good underdog, and that's kind of what we've been. And it's crazy to me the fact that the last time we were in the playoffs at all was when I was in 5th grade, and I'm a senior in college, and it just really hits home, like, how long it's been. So obviously that's going to make everything a lot more special, and I love seeing the excitement. I love seeing how much it's bringing the city together, just how happy everyone is. So again, it's just an amazing thing to be witnessing right now.
Yeah, I mean, the city is just so ecstatic right now. I mean, you got everybody coming together, like Siobhan said, everybody coming together because of that song that they played, Dancing on My Own. And just seeing the joy in everyone's face after Castellanos caught that ball, and the reaction from all the players. I mean, you see everybody running out of the bars in the neighborhoods and everything, all those people on Broad Street, lighting up fireworks and everything. It's just a great atmosphere right now in the city.
Definitely very awesome to see. But again, as Shane brought up, it would not be a Phillies playoff game if there wasn't some drama involved. And the guy that brought the drama in Game 5 was Sir Anthony Dominguez. The rain was definitely a huge factor. He just didn't really have any control. 3 wild pitches in 1 inning. That's something that's never happened in his career. He allowed 2 runs, including the leading runs. The Padres are up 3-2 after the 7th inning. What was everyone's thoughts after that Sir Anthony inning?
Yeah, I mean,
Pure panic.
he's been so good, and I'm not really worried because it was the rain. I mean, I don't think there's anything to be worried about with him, but Rob Thompson, again, just he knew when to get him out, and Alvarado in the 8th, and then even in the 9th when he saw Robertson just lost control, bringing in Ranger. I mean, that's a move that not a lot of managers would be, they'll be scared to make. So I think Thompson handled it well, but yeah, with Sir Anthony, he's been good. I know he struggled at the end of the regular season, but he's been good in the playoffs. But it was the rain, so I'm not too worried. But we'll see how that goes into the World Series.
See, I envy that so much because when I watch a sports game, especially, with the team that I'm very invested in, like the Phillies, it's just that is what all goes through my mind. It's just like I'm panicking. I'm like, nope, this is it. It's all going wrong. So, Mike, I really envy the fact that you can just be like, no, it was the rain. Very reasonable explanation because, like, the whole time I'm just like, oh, my God, white knuckles. Like, it's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was so nervous with they had the runner on second. It's a 2-1 ball game, and then they give up. Josh Bell gets the base hit, ties the game, and I'm like, please don't do this. Like, this is probably the most typical like Philly thing ever is to do this. And I'm thinking that this game is probably going back to San Diego, and they're having a game 6, and I was not feeling good at all when that was happening.
No, I'm definitely more on the Siobhan and Shane side of this, where I've seen way too many Philadelphia teams lose a game like this, where they were leading this late in the game, that they still lost because of something fluke like the rain, because that's definitely what it was. And then the hero of the entire postseason stepped up the plate. After Remuto got a clutch single with no outs at the bottom of the 8th inning, Bryce Harper, the man, the myth, the legend, stepped up to the plate and hit the game-winning 2-run home run to send the Phillies to the World Series. That moment it felt almost as if we didn't, first of all, deserve it to happen. And second of all, it doesn't feel like anything that's ever happened in the city, at least in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a real Phillies fan, you knew that it was going to come. I know they almost blew it in the 8th inning, but you knew the way they've been playing the whole playoffs and postseason, how the season's gone. This team is just, honestly, a team of destiny, and you knew when Bryce Harper was coming off the plate, he wasn't striking out. I mean, the pitches he was fouling off, he wasn't striking out. So you knew he was going to do something. He was going to put the ball in play, and that's exactly what he did, and add the home run to that, and it's one of the most iconic moments in Phillies or just baseball history in general.
Yeah, I could really see that going down as just this iconic historical moment that they're going to keep playing over and over again. And it's great because that's what Bryce Harper does. And it's great that even though there was probably tons of pressure, he was able to step up and do what he needed to do. So obviously that's what you expect from him. That's what you want from him. But there's, at least for me, there's always going to be that little anxious voice that's saying, well, what if he doesn't? What if, he can't hit it? But he did. And it's just an indescribable kind of feeling when you have that boost of confidence, and it's like Bryce Harper. That's the moment where you're just kind of like, Bryce Harper was so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, that at bat was just incredible. I mean, he's taking fastball after fastball after fastball, and he keeps fouling them off, and then it's a 1-2 count, and Suarez throws a changeup, and after he took that changeup, he's locked in right there, and he's about to do something good, whether that's a base hit to tie the game or the 2-run shot that he got. And after he hit that 2-run shot, everyone knew that he was worth every penny of that contract that he got. I mean, he's the best player.
Yeah, that contract's been talked about a lot on social media. It is one of the bigger contracts, 13 years, $330 million. There was actually a couple pages I saw on Instagram saying that the contract should be close to the $400 million. So it's pretty crazy that Phillies got Bryce Harper for what's now seeming like a bargain.
Yeah, I'm glad people are finally starting to see that because, he won MVP last year. He was worth the money, honestly, the second we got him. Just the energy and leadership that he brings, and now it's finally starting to turn into success and team success that we didn't see the past couple years. But I think that starts kind of with the ownership and manager. But, he's obviously worth the money now, but, if you just watch him the past 4 years, he's been worth the money in my opinion.
Yeah, I know that, $333 million for one guy seemed excessive at the time, but time after time, he's proved that he's worth the money, and he's proved that, he is, as I've seen a lot on social media, he is him. So I just really think that he has proven over and over that he's worth the money, and if you still doubt that after this home run, then you're crazy, because this is seriously just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he hears it in like every away ballpark he goes that he's overrated. He always hears the chance of overrated. He's been in the spotlight in baseball since he was 15 years old, and he made his debut when he was 19 years old with the Washington Nationals. And he had so much like pressure under him being the #1 prospect that he was just so young. So it just like seemed that he was just like too like cocky or whatever, and so people just thought he was overrated, and then he signed that big contract with the Phillies, and he's been earning every single ounce of cent or whatever you want to call it of that contract.
Definitely has. Just as my mind did at the beginning of this segment, the Phillies' mind is definitely way past the Padres at this point because they are facing the Houston Astros, the best team in the postseason by far. They are 7-0. They have not lost a game yet. They're going to be starting Justin Verlander in the first game. Phillies are going to win with Aaron Nola. That's a bit of a surprise because most people thought they were going to be going with Wheeler.
I like the decision. I mean, at first I was kind of like, but you look at it, Wheeler, when he gets into the 7th and 8th, I know we're deep into the playoffs now, but his velocity has been going down. We'll go from 99 to like 94, and when you see that as a manager, you got to get your pitcher out there. So I think giving him that extra day is huge because you still will have him for 2 games, hopefully, in that series because he'll pitch games 2, and then hopefully if it goes 7, he pitch game 7 unless they use him earlier. But I do like how they're playing it out, and I mean, we saw how Nola pitched in Houston to clinch the playoffs, so hopefully he's got the same success in Game 1.
Yep. So we will be wrapping up the Phillies now and going to a team that nobody saw as one of the best teams in the city. The Philadelphia Flyers are off to a 4-2 start after many people predict they would finish last in Metropolitan. They've got a couple of guys that have been absolutely critical to their success. Travis Konechny has 4 goals and 2 assists in the first 4 games. Carter Hart is 4-0, has not lost a game yet, 1.75 goals allowed per game, and a .940 save percentage, which is near the tops of the NHL. The Flyers have just been awesome. Who do you think is the most key part to their success?
Yeah, I think it's the start. It's Carter Hart. I mean, we bashed him all last year that he just wasn't the Carter Hart that we saw his first couple years in the league, and he's finally back to that bubble form that we saw when they made that little run in the bubble a couple years ago. But it's Carter Hart, and I think Tortorella is really. I think that hire is just good for that locker room and the team. They don't have the talent, but I think they're just playing hard for him. But we'll see how that goes over an 82-game season. But through the first couple weeks, it's definitely paying off.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to see Travis Konechny getting his numbers back up because in that same season that Carter Hart was really an all-star, Travis Konechny was also the name that everyone was talking about. And then last season, he really kind of fell off and just wasn't at his best. So I'm really glad to see that he's improving a lot and getting back to that form. So I'm hoping that he can kind of return to that all-star status that he was at a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Mike on this one. I think Carter Hart, he's 4-0-0. He has a .175 goals against average, which is ranked 6th in all of NHL. And then he has a .949 save percentage, which is ranked 4th in all of NHL. And, I mean, their 2 losses come when Sandstrom was in the net. I mean, he's played decent for them. But, I mean, it just shows that, it just shows that it's all Carter Hart. I mean, and also the Flyers are picking up a lot of shots. Against the Devils, they gave up 37. Vancouver was 30. Tampa Bay was 38. And Nashville was 32. And that was in all games that Carter Hart started in. And he's only given up 2 goals in each of those games.
Yeah, so the one game that was really big was the Lightning game, which just came out of nowhere. They were down 0-2 to start that game. They scored 3 consecutive goals after the second period, ended up getting the win. Carter Hart, crucial, 30 in the win, 38 saves. Just an awesome win against a team that finished second in the NHL last year, had won the previous 2 Stanley Cups before that. How big was this win for the Flyers?
Yeah, it's a huge win, especially for a team that's not supposed to do much this season. I mean, just the morale that gives in the locker room is just great, and their defense has just been so much better than last year. That's been a problem in front of Carter Hart, is just bad defense, and it's good to see that the defense is finally there. Offense still needs to get it going. Like Siobhan said, Travis Konechny has been good, Farabee too, Hayes, but it's got to come together if you want to be a good team, and it can't just be one side of defense and the goalie. It's got to be the whole thing. So hopefully they can continue as this early season goes, put it all together.
And I think it really does speak to what's going on in the locker room and what's going on between the team because, going up against a team like the Lightning who's just been so good in recent years, they could have just been internalizing what everyone's been saying about them and how they're just not going to do well and there's really no hope for the Flyers, and they could have just given up against the Lightning, but they didn't. They had that really great comeback win. So I just think that really speaks to the changing vibe in the locker room and how they're still willing to fight, even though a lot of people just haven't been believing in them.
Yeah, and I think it all goes to John Tortorella. I mean, he's a coach who has an aggressive style of play, and that's what they've been playing so far, and it's been working out well for them. I mean, the game before against Vancouver, they were also down 0-2, and they came back to win that game 3-2, just like they did the Lightning.
So the one game after that was really concerned, sort of shows where we thought the Flyers were, was their loss to the San Jose Sharks. They lost 3-0. Travis Konecny and Kevin Hayes both get benched. There's a lot of rumors that there's some drama between the coaching staff and these more veteran players. Do you see this as a concern going into the next few games?
Yeah, I mean, you always see that with, a veteran coach like Tortorella and then like veteran players too. They're going to butt heads, but, I think you're still early in the season, and I like what Tortorella has brought to this team and to just the city in general. I think that's what they needed. I like Vigneault, but I just don't think he brought what Tortorella can bring, and hopefully this was just one incident. I don't think it will be a problem for the rest of the season.
And I hope not, because those veteran players are so important to the Flyers locker room. Like you can just tell when Claude Giroux was here, obviously he was the captain, but also that longevity that he had. Couturier, Lawton, Kevin Hayes, they're all very important guys, very important leaders in those teams. So I've never been a big believer in coaches benching players like that to try and prove a point or prove authority. So like Mike said, I hope that it's, an isolated incident and that they can be back out on the ice and that there isn't any drama happening in the team.
Yeah, and once again, it goes all back to John Tortorella. I mean, he said that if you don't play well, you're not going to play, and that's been his thing ever since he's been in the league. Ever since he's coached the Lightning, he's coached the Rangers, he's coached Vancouver. That's how he's always coached. If you're not going to get the playing time, you're not going to get the ice time if you do not play well, and that's what happened. So
it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes. As of right now, they're still top 3 teams in the Metropolitan. They're only a point away from the top spot. Is there a chance that they will be here for longer than 2 weeks?
I mean, as a biased Flyers fan, yes, but realistically, probably not. But if they do, hey, I mean, but right now my focus is more Phillies and Eagles at this point. But I mean, hopefully, we'll see. But as being a realistic fan, I don't think so.
Well, there's also another team that we should probably jump to as well, and that's going to be the Union, who our focus should be on, because they also won a huge playoff game. They won the Eastern Conference semifinal over FC Cincinnati, 1-0. Andres Blake got his 16th shutout of the year, and Leon Flatch, a 21-year-old in his second year of the MLS, got the game-winning goal for the Union pretty much out of nowhere. How big was this win for the Union, Siobhan?
It's so huge because the playoffs in MLS, it gets vicious, and teams upset each other all the time. And so you never really have a good idea of who's going to win and who's going to just completely surprise you. So the fact that it was a 1-0 win really speaks to the defensive prowess of the Union. And I'm really happy to see Leon Flach get a goal, because even though he is a midfielder, he's not really a goal-scoring midfielder. So the fact that he's a young guy and that he was able to get that game-winning goal and that they were able to keep that clean sheet is just, it's expected of the Union defense because they've just been that good, but it's always comforting when they win a game like that.
Yeah, so it's very interesting as well that the guy that scored was Flack. It wasn't Daniel Gazdag. It wasn't
For once.
Well, yeah, no, it wasn't Julian
Carranza.
Yeah. So it wasn't one of these big-time goal scorers, which is also a huge testament to who can step up for the Union in these big-time situations.
Yeah, it's really important because the squad depth has been an issue in the past, and especially with the young guys, because the Union have a very good academy, but obviously when you're putting like 18-year-olds out in their first playoffs, they might not always perform how you want them to. So the fact that the squad depth is getting better, the fact that I think he's 19 years old, Jack McGlynn, was able to step up for the captain, Alejandro Bedoya, when he was out with an injury and play really well. It just really speaks to the fact that they have players that can step up in these big situations, and it's really, really comforting if, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have what happened against NYCFC happen this year. But if that does happen, I'm a lot more comforted that we have people that can fill those gaps if needed.
So as you just alluded to, the Union's next opponent will be the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year in the Eastern Conference Final. They were playing NYCFC. Last year lost to them in a heartbreaking 2-1 loss. The game's going to be Sunday at 8 o'clock. It's going to be in Philadelphia. The city's already going nuts off the Phillies. There's going to be a lot of energy at this game as well. What do you expectations for this game?
I think there's going to be a lot of aggression. I think it is going to be very much a revenge game because the Union play pretty aggressive anyway, but the fact that it's a geographic rival and the fact that NYCFC kind of unjustifiably knocked them out, because I still fully believe, I will die on this hill, if they had a fully healthy team, it would have been over before it began. And I was at that game when they lost, and it was a heartbreaker. So I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of revenge happening in this game, and I think it's going to be a really good game. And I don't want to see any people pretending to be Union fans if they do win the MLS Cup, because not that I believe in gatekeeping, but if you're just jumping on the bandwagon now, then I don't want to see you on Broad Street when they win. So
I do totally understand that with the amount of people that are jumping on Phillies bandwagons. It does happen.
I'm not used to Philly being a bandwagon team city, so when I see people do that, I'm like, no, we've suffered too much to have this happen.
So the other team that won in the West Conference was LAFC, who finished top in the West, as we talked about before on the show. It seems as though the Union and LAFC are both on a collision course to play in the finals. What are the possibilities of that happening, Siobhan?
Obviously, if it's the MLS Cup final that they meet, that's going to be their toughest game of the year, because LAFC are just an amazing team. They won the Supporters' Shield. They were top of the Western Conference. So it's going to be their toughest opponent and toughest game, maybe in their entire history. I think they're up to the challenge, but it's definitely going to be one where they have to fight through that entire 90 minutes, and they're really going to have to be at the very top of their games and just play for their lives.
Yeah, I would say it was very shocking to see how close Cincinnati was able to play with the Union. It felt like that this was going to be a much higher scoring game for the Union, and it really wasn't. Yeah,
because we're so used to seeing them with the 4-0s and the 6-0s and everything, but I'm hoping that was just kind of more, I don't know. I'm hoping that it was just kind of a one-off thing, and that they're better rested, they're better prepared. They've had a lot of morale boost because Andre Blake has won Goalkeeper of the Year, Jacob Glesnes won Defender of the Year, Jim Curtin won Coach of the Year. So I'm hoping things like that can kind of boost the morale, and that people who haven't played in the playoffs before are able to understand how big of a deal this is and how much this means to the team and the fans.
So we're now going to go with our last segment of the show, Fast Five. We're going to stick with all Philadelphia teams for this segment, and you'll start to see why at the end. But the first thing that we need to talk about is the Sixers' struggles. They're 1-4. They've looked horrible. Mike, what is the biggest issue for the Sixers?
It's Doc Rivers, in my opinion. I think the Sixers need to look at what the Phillies did and how they fired Girardi and bring in someone who's already there. They got to fire Doc Rivers ASAP and bring in Sam Cassell. I mean, they should have fired him last season, if not the year before that when they lost to the Hawks. But, there's no more Ben Simmons to blame anymore. I mean, this team is ready to win. And, James Harden is playing at an MVP level, and you can't keep wasting these years with Embiid. So I think it starts with getting rid of Rivers.
So, Mike Zvon, this next question is also for you. The Eagles had a bye week. They're still 6-0. They have got a couple of pretty easy games coming up. How long do you guys think that they can stay undefeated for?
Yeah, I think they can for the next couple of weeks. I think they're bound to lose a game here. I think probably at the Giants or the Titans game, or two games, I could see them losing. But I think for the next couple of weeks against the Texans and the Steelers on Sunday, I think they will win those games.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I don't think they're going 17-0 this season, as nice as that would be. Yeah, I think if they're going to lose a game in the coming schedule, it's probably going to be against the Giants. But I do think that they're playing really well and that they can keep this up for at least a little bit longer. So hopefully we can just enjoy it as much as possible.
So our last question isn't really a question, but it's more of a lot of questions. In honor of the Phillies making the World Series, we are going to ask a bunch of World Series trivia questions. No, it is not only questions about the World Series they've won, but all the World Series they have played. So hopefully you guys studied or know a little bit about Phillies history. If not, we will see right now. So the first question is, who was the Phillies' opponent in the 1915 World Series?
The White Sox?
The Cubs.
Any guesses, Shane?
I have no idea.
All right, so the answer was actually the Boston Red Sox.
That's what I said.
They would go. Yeah, you did get the Sox part right. It was the first World Series the Phillies played in, and someone on that team, the rookie for playing for Boston, Babe Ruth. Didn't appear in any games that series, was on the Red Sox roster. The next question is, name the nickname of the 1950 Phillies team that would appear in the World Series that season.
The Whiz Kids.
That is correct.
I was like,
Yeah, I was like, wait.
That's one that most people do know. Robert
Yeah.
Roberts was a star on that team, a lot of other young guys as well. Unfortunately, they would get swept by the Yankees that year. The next question is, who are the two players on the Phillies to win National League Cy Young and MVP in 1980, the year they won their second World
Mike
Series?
Schmidt and Steve Carlson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I mean,
Carlson has to be
that's
one.
an easy one.
Yes, yeah, that one is a really easy one. They were the two best players on the Phillies by far.
Yeah.
They just dominated that entire year. They would dominate through the postseason as well. Going off of the 1980 team as well, this is one where they both won, so it should be a little bit easier. Name the two Phillies pitchers that got the final outs to win the Phillies World Series in 1980 and 2008.
Tug McGraw and
Brad Lidge and Tuck
Brad
Lidge.
Lidge.
Yes.
Brad Lidge.
Yeah.
I was going to say
Lights
Brad
out
Pitt.
Lidge.
I'm like, wait, he doesn't play baseball.
Lights Out
Nah.
Lidge was his
But
nickname.
he did appear in a
Didn't
baseball
blow a
movie.
save that entire
Nope.
season. I know
48
that.
for 48.
Yeah, he was awesome that year. Tug McGraw was also a guy that was on the Mets. We can forgive him because he did win the World Series for the Phillies. So, honestly, both of those guys had great careers overall. And Brad Lidge actually pitched with the Astros as well for a decent amount of time.
Yep.
So, there's a lot of ties between the Astros and Phillies, as we will, I'm sure, hear about in the next coming days and week or so. So, another question that we have is, we will skip a few. Who is the Phillies 2008 MVP?
Cole Hamels.
It was Cole Hamels. Yeah, 24-year-old rookie, was absolutely dominant in that postseason. And then we will now go to the year after another World Series they unfortunately lost. Who was the Phillies pitcher to win both games in the 2009 World Series?
Cliff Lee.
Was Cliff Lee. Yeah, Cliff Lee dominated that postseason. You'll forget in Game 1 of the NLDS against the Rockies, nearly pitched a no-hitter. Was great in Game 1 against the Yankees. A little bit worse in Game 4 he won, or Game 5, sorry, but still was awesome in those two games. And then when was the only other time before this year the Phillies have played the Astros in the playoffs?
1980 NLCS.
That is correct.
Won 3 games to 2.
Yes. Yeah, they played a 5-game series. The NLCS was only Game 5 because that was the only playoff series at that point before you got to the World Series. Phillies, it was a close one. Steve Carlson pitched pretty well, but they were able to get through. We do have a couple other questions. This one is one they lost. Who was the Phillies pitcher that gave up the World Series home run to Joe Carter in 1993?
Mitch Williams.
It was, do you know what his nickname was?
Wild Thing.
That is, yeah. And if you watch, it's pretty clear why his nickname was
Yep.
Wild Thing. We unfortunately have to end on a little bit of a bad note, but again, Phillies are in the World Series, so we don't really care. Thank you for watching this episode. Make sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at SportsTalk LTV. We'll be posting a lot more about the Phillies, obviously, a lot of in-game reactions. I'm sure you saw some of the few that I posted if you've been checking it out. But make sure to tune in next week as well. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating, if not a Phillies World Series win, them having a lead. So thank you for tuning in. Yeah, that's all we have for this episode. Go Phils.